Today, the Below Average Joe's MMA show present the weekend recap. And we are talking everything and anything about UFC Las Vegas
Mm.
and Bellator 292.
Mm.
Lots of takeaways, the good, the bad, the ugly, all this and more. And it all starts right now.
Mm.
Welcome back, everybody. Coming in a little more aggressive today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this recap edition of the show.
Mm.
I'm one half of your hosting duo, Noah Baker.
Mm-hmm.
The man to my right, my brother in arms in terms of the Carhartt Bros, as we are now known. He is fresh off the road
Mm-hmm.
from a great old trip down south to Tennessee. Dominic, how was the trip? How was the trip back? How are you feeling? A lot of fights that were going on this weekend. You had to kind of weave your way between being present in the moment
Yep.
and being obviously present for the fight. So how are you able to manage it all? Just let us know.
All in all, I think I did well. I think I did okay. Enough to bring you guys a hell of an episode, as we always do. It was a great weekend. That place down in Nashville, man, for those that haven't been, it's fun. I definitely recommend it. It's a good time. Don't even have to be a fan of country music either. You go down there, you listen to good music, have good times with good people. So had the family down there with me. Also, shout out to the wonderful girlie, Jaden. I know you're probably listening. Celebrated our 1 year as we were down there together.
Yeah, I
in
didn't
Nashville.
realize that was coming up.
Yeah, it was kind of a perfect little.
It does. Once I
timing.
saw I think her post that said that,
Yeah.
I thought back and I was like, wait a minute, it was last Christmas when your mom had posted the pictures
Yeah.
and you two were together. And you guys don't know this because this happened off recording, but I may or may not have figuratively shoved my foot up Dom's ass for not telling me.
Yeah.
So it does make sense. It's been a year. It's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy.
Again, 1 year.
Again a year. But it was great. So cheers to maturing and age as well. But it was awesome. It was a great time filled with just love and quality time. That's what it's all about. Life's about quality time with quality people. It was fun. And now I'm here getting quality time from afar, of course, but quality time nonetheless with the wonderful co-host Noah Baker. How was your weekend in Indiana? Anything fun, or were you completely indulged in MMA and sports betting, of course?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much all I did. I did go grocery shopping, which I just hate. I hate doing it. Sometimes if I'm like really lazy or, I don't feel like when I get off work and I need to go grocery shopping, I kid you not, I'll come home and I'll do the app. Like it's like a version of DoorDash, but for grocery.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you know what? Someone else go do this for me. I just really don't feel like it. But yesterday, since it's the weekend, I woke up at probably about 10:30.
That's the go-to time.
Went to Meijer. I just hate it. And then you have to carry everything up. I'm living on the third floor.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm not buying the big cases of waters anymore. That was the real struggle. Was
you'd have to build
when you have to make two
system.
trips. Yeah, when you have to make two trips,
yeah,
that's the pain. And I refuse to make two trips. So Dominic, I got 5 bags on each arm. I got bags. I'm holding bags in my mouth. I mean, it's a mess.
As you should.
But I imagine my weekend was a little more quaint compared to your guys's. If there's one thing I know about Jaden, she is the life of the party. So being with her on Broadway, I imagine was quite the trip.
Nonstop action.
Yeah, of course. And it's a shame that she did not take you to Robert's Western World. She did make it clear that she went there.
Yes.
When we were together watching UFC 285. So that tells me that she just hated the place, and that that bothers me because I gave her the recommendation. But
true.
Whatever. Nudies is cool. All those places are pretty cool. So with that, Dominic, I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad you guys got back in one piece.
Thank you. Yep.
We could talk about that MMA action that occurred this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's start with the UFC main event, Dominic. And, we talked about it on Thursday. By the way, he's one machine now, then, man. If you can name where that movie's from, the quote that movie is from, then points to you.
Points. Free shirt down the line some point.
Yeah. Yeah. We had talked about this on, now Wednesday, I guess, but Friday when you guys saw it. This idea that this was the third straight fight, I mean, even maybe more than that, but the third straight fight where Yan was going in as a pretty heavy betting favorite. And the previous two tries have been that he had lost. And even if you want to dispute the Sean O'Malley loss, it was a very close fight, even though he was like a -4 or 450 or something like that going in. So once again, he loses. And Dominic, I think this is the most thorough loss of his career here to Merab Dvalishvili. Yan had 3 losses before this fight. One was a DQ, or no, excuse me. I think he had 4 before this fight in his entire career. He had the loss to Rafael Stotts
way back.
1 DQ loss and 3 split decisions. If that don't tell you how competitive all of his fights have been through his career, then I don't know what does. And yet here he got completely outworked from pillar to post, from start to finish. 50-45s across the board for Merab. The best performance of Merab's young career. In a lot of ways, a legacy-making performance to really establish himself for any naysayers that were left about Merab, who saw the Jose Aldo performance and said, this guy is boring. He's catching Jose on the way down. He went 0 for like 17 on takedowns in that fight. He's not going to be able to do it against a guy like Yan, who's so much better at this point. And Dominic, I think he set a record for takedown attempts for one. And people said at the end of the first round, he can't keep this pace up. There's no shot. There's no shot he can keep this up for 20 more minutes. Dominic, if it tells you anything, at the end of the fight, Yan looked like he was much more exhausted than Merab was, and Merab did not slow down for a single second.
Yeah.
So my question for you, I want you, of course, give your thoughts on this performance for Merab, and we can kind of get more into, what this fight really does for him. And, there's obviously some very interesting elements to that question. And then we can get into a little bit about Yan and kind of where this puts him now, losing 4 of his last 5.
Yeah, that's crazy to say that too, because especially for you've always been so high on Yan, but the flowers, of course, go to Merab first and foremost. What a workhorse! There's not an engine or a motor in the UFC, maybe in MMA, that runs like Merab's. I mean, it's just insane. 49 takedown attempts. 49 takedown attempts. That's almost 10 per round. He was one shy of averaging 10 takedown attempts per round, and he landed 11 of them. I don't care what that percentage is. Those are insane numbers. And I'm going to not go like too crazy with this statement, but let's be honest here. It was his most complete performance, I think, as an all-around skill set that we've ever seen. Because on paper, he should have not even really been competitive on the feet with a guy like Petr Yan. And I'm not saying he worked him and outclassed him on the feet, but he held his own. He did damage. The calf kicks were very good.
Well,
he basically,
Dominic, I would say he got the better of the striking because ultimately Yan had to be so respectful of the takedowns. It opens up everything else.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, what a performance. And if this isn't a title shot earning performance, regardless of weight class, I don't know what you want to see. If you had questions about Merab's skills, about his, cardio, anything, because this was his first main event going 5 rounds, I feel like he answered every question. I love that we kind of have talked about that the last 2 weeks with some of these main events. What questions were answered? What questions are left afterwards? I like that. Maybe that's a new wrinkle we add to the show. But he answered a lot, man, for me. And don't get me wrong, the Jose fight was not fun from a fan perspective, but it still at least showed Merab's so strong. And he is just a good fighter, regardless of how it went. This one was just non-stop action for 25 straight minutes. I can't recall many performances since we've started this podcast that had a pacing like that from one fighter. So what a win. What a way to arrive in your first main event. It's one thing to win when you get that marquee spot, but to do this against an elite level talent and Petr Yan is just fantastic. And, before we get into what's next, give me your thoughts, because I'm sure you have just as many praises as I do.
This is probably kind of transitioning a little bit, but to me, I can't help though, Dom, but you're right. Title shot earning performance if I've ever seen one. And he's doing it against a former champion, a former interim champion. I mean, DC called him a former 2-time champion. For all intents and purposes, you can call him that.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who his record is not really indicative of the kind of talent he is. The Sean O'Malley decision is disputed. It was a great fight. He looked good in it. The Aljo loss, it happens. Aljo's really proving to be a very good champion at this point. And obviously, you look at what Aljo did when he took the back of like Corey Sandhagen in their fight, choked him out within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
With Yan, he had his back in multiple rounds and couldn't do it. And I think that speaks to just how good Yan is everywhere. DQ loss, Yan was dominating. Yes, these are all losses. I'm not trying to diminish them, but I'm just saying that the losing streak or the skid is not indicative of him slipping at all as like a top fighter.
Yeah.
And for Merab to go in here and make him look like a shell of himself for Yan, that says a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew Merab was very good. I knew he was elite in a lot of ways. And you could have even told me there's a world where he'd compete for a title. And I even questioned the betting odds about having Yan that big of a favorite. I still ended up putting Yan on a parlay. So if that tells you anything, is that I could have saw Merab winning this fight. But to do it in the fashion he did, shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. I mean, I thought this fight was going to either be Yan really just outclassing him on the feet and maybe getting a finish, or a very, very close decision. Both guys having their moments, and then it comes down to the scorecards, which Yan has been in that position a few times. Like I said, 3 split decision losses. So that's not at all what happened. Merab, dominant, title shot earning performance, yet his training partner, his teammate, the man in his corner last night is the champion right now, Aljamain Sterling. Now, Aljo does have a scheduled title defense in May against Henry Cejudo. So for all we know, if Cejudo wins that fight, that could change a lot of what we're about to talk about here. But of course, DC asked Merab about that situation because they have said they will not fight each other. That's what they said. They're brothers. They don't want to fight each other. Well, Merab really doubled down on that a little bit in his post-fight interview. And basically called for the UFC to give him any of the guys that are kind of a fight away from he basically called to be like the guy to take out these challengers for Sterling. Like he was really it was a whole nother level of like just I guess that's a whole nother level of loyalty. To be clear, like to really ask for those kind of guys, like he wants a guy like Corey Sandhagen or a guy like Sean O'Malley or someone who is on the doorstep of earning a title fight. He wants to take them out so Aljo doesn't even have to face those kind of guys. I don't really think that's how it's going to go though, Dom. I mean, I think what worries me, Dana was asked this question at his Power Slap presser. And he said, as he's been very consistent on this issue.
That's true. Yeah.
When teammates and friends say they don't want to fight each other, he always says it's a terrible idea. And he said that as much here. He said he thinks it would be a very bad idea for Merab to do that. Because if you turn down, because I'm assuming the UFC may want to offer him a shot if Aljo were to win against Cejudo. If he turns that down, it's not going to be he gets a fight with like Sean O'Malley or Corey Sandhagen. Those guys, they don't want these guys that could be title challengers getting taken out before they even get to the dance.
No.
They're not going to give him a Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is going to overstep him for a title fight.
O'Malley would, and the winner of Sandhagen Vera. Both would overleap
Yeah, I shouldn't.
Vera
I've left
or
out Marlon
Merab.
Vera from
Yeah.
the He's obviously also in that discussion.
Yeah.
Merab would end up fighting like the winner. I said this for Yan on Friday, but Merab would probably get like the winner of a Song Yadong, Ricky
And Simone.
Simone.
Yep, for sure.
Which that's a dangerous fight, but it's a guy that's not quite they're not quite in the contender discussion.
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous fight that doesn't feel like someone in Merab's position should take, but it's risky. And that's ultimately the fights he's going to be looking at.
Yeah.
If he is to turn down a potential title fight. What do you make of this situation? Obviously we're not in a position to tell these guys what they should do. They ultimately, I trust that they know better what's best for their careers than we do. But if you're in that camp, if you're one of Merab's, guys in his circle, where are you leaning on this issue? What do you feel like Merab should do?
No, man, I feel like when guys make this decision with training partners and such, I see it both ways. If they end up fighting each other, Usman Burns, just the most recent one that comes to mind, then they do it. And, oh, well, I'm going to watch. Obviously, I'm going to watch everything. But if they choose not to, I have a certain amount of respect for that as well. They respect each other. They respect the grind that it took both of them to reach the top. And you don't want to be the one to take that from your brother. So I understand it. So I'm never going to be one to say they shouldn't do this. But I want Merab to get his stars. I want him to get his chance to become a champion. So as a fan, I do almost hate that it's like you're taking yourself out of the picture. And we talked about this probably a little bit too much on Friday than we should have, just for today's sake. But I said, even if Aljo loses, it's not even a guarantee that Merab will get a title shot then, because Henry could potentially go to 145. Now, you did make a good point in the aftermath of that discussion, saying, well, I'm not so sure that Sterling would get the vacant shot against somebody else. And I do agree. So maybe Merab will get in there against Sean O'Malley or whatever. But I really worry that he can just lower himself on the totem pole by making this decision. He didn't say anything about 125, which
that sucked for me
because this performance earned him a shot at 125.
Yeah, it just
as long as Pantoja goes first, he got the shot.
I made the call. I like Babe Ruth pointed to the center field bleachers and said Merab would be the flyweight champion. I was hoping so bad, Dom.
Yeah.
That he would call for that title fight, and he didn't. And I was sitting there like, man, it's not going to happen, is it? He's really going to stick at 135.
Yeah, and not only does he not mention that, but then he says, well, when Sterling goes to 145. And I'm like, what? That's happening? I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, so is Aljo planning to go to 145 if he beats Cejudo? I mean, maybe he does. It seems like the winner of that may just go to 145 regardless of who it is. So I don't know, man. I want him to get his chance, because what I saw last night sure the hell looks like he could be a champion. And again, I know it's not going to happen, but him versus Aljo, that'd be pretty sick. I mean, look at their styles. That is such a clash. They know each other like the backs of their hand, more so than what you would even see from Burns versus Usman. So as much as I respect him and them making this decision to not fight each other, I kind of want to see it happen at the same time. And a lot rides on what happens in May. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. I just worry that he could get passed up. And for all we know, if he just loses one fight, if he slips up and loses to a Sandhagen, a Simone, a Yadong, it's going to be a while before I think he could get back, because of this division and how nasty it is right now, man.
How nasty it is. And then for Merab, he's not one of the biggest known guys in the division.
Yeah, even after last night, he won't be. That's just
but after last night, he is at a hot point. He has hit he's at a point where this is the time to really cash in and put him in that position, because his stock could not be higher. But Dominic, if he skips over it, if he 6 months from now is fighting Song Yadong or Ricky Simone, all of a sudden it loses a little bit of that.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of a shame. I know there's more that goes into it. It's not just that him and Aljo are buddies, training partners. Like, it's not just the brotherhood aspect or the loyalty, but Dominic, there's also the parameters around the fact that they train in the same gym. So
Yep.
a lot of
Yeah.
times when you've seen it in the past, when guys who train at the same gym are scheduled to fight one another, a lot of times one of the guys leaves and has to go train elsewhere. I remember specifically Donald Cerrone was scheduled to fight Mike Perry on one
Yep.
of those
Yep.
anniversary shows in Colorado. And Cerrone, that kind of severed the relationship between Cerrone and wasn't it Winklejohn?
Yeah. The whole gym, the whole
Yeah,
relationship
because he felt like they essentially sided
chose.
with Perry,
Yep.
chose Perry, the younger fighter,
Yep.
and kind of obsoleted Donald from the situation.
Yeah.
And now Donald now he's retired, but then he's kind of started his own,
Right.
started doing his own thing. So I'm sure there's a little bit of we just don't want that kind of bad voodoo in
Mm-hmm.
here. They're a tight knit group. They've had a lot of greats come out of there. Chris Weidman,
And it's
these
a
guys have,
small gym.
yeah. I mean, this is a small group of guys, but there's a lot of legacy that
Yes.
trains there. Matt Serra,
Yeah.
obviously one of the coaches there. So these guys, there is a sense of there's more to it than just how
them.
specifically Aljo and Merab feel about each other.
Yeah.
It plays there's a little bigger picture to it. So when Dana comes down real hard on these guys who won't fight one another, I get it. I get it when it's situations wasn't there a time, Dom, when Anderson Silva was champion where he didn't want to fight? I don't know if it was not Damian Maia.
I feel like almost Brazilian fighters in general.
Brazilian fighters. And that was a big thing back then. And I know Anderson Silva specifically, there was somebody he specifically was like, I will not fight this guy. We're friends. And it was kind of but they don't train together. Why, why can't you just fight? And
right.
You need to fight each other. Same with Gilbert Burns you mentioned and Vicente Luque.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
So these things happen, but it makes more sense when it's guys that train together that are literally in the same gym. I mean, there is more to it.
It's just
part of me wonders, we're talking about all this and we don't know what these two have actually had conversations about behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
For all we know, Aljo has made it pretty clear that win or lose, he's going to 145.
Yeah, that could be true.
And Merab's Merab even kind of said, when Aljo goes to 145, I'm right. So it's sort of it's almost like there's some conversation we've not been made privy to. That Aljo's for sure going up a weight class. And maybe that's the case. Maybe it isn't, but that would be the thing that makes sense here. Win or lose, Aljo go up and weight, and then that opens the door for Merab to fight for a title.
Yeah. We, in a way, just as much as we love to talk about what's next, we kind of just have to wait. We have to wait 2 months, see what happens with Cejudo and Aljo in the title fight. And then we'll talk about, Merab. We'll circle back. And by then, we will also have Marlon Vera or Corey Sandhagen, the winner of that, to talk about. Yeah. So
how weird would it be if that title fight occurs for the bantamweight title and both guys, win or lose, both go up and weight afterwards? Because if Cejudo wins, you would think he's going to go up to 145. And then let's say Aljo's just going up anyways. Both guys fighting for the bantamweight title, no longer in the bantamweight division after that.
And it's weird. If Cejudo loses, does he even bother fighting again?
I think it loses that luster of being a guy going for 3.
And then you have kind of a 3-man race because O'Malley's waiting it out. It's pretty clear at this point. He's not going to fight anybody else. He beat Petr Yan, regardless of if you think he did or not. He's up in the top 3. He's going to wait for a title fight. You'll have Merab, and then you'll have, I keep saying the winner of Sandhagen Vera because Sandhagen I could see him getting another chance, but especially if Marlon Vera wins, there's 3. You can only have 2. You know what I mean? So it's almost like last year. Remember when we kind of had the unofficial Bantamweight Grand Prix? It's almost like it's happening again this year. And it's kudos to the division and how good all these guys are, but This is a big month and a half for 135 pounds.
And and that's funny you just brought that up. And we're talking about it as if Merab is guaranteed to be given a shot.
Yeah.
And he should be off this performance. But Dominic, if that's really how things go, if Cejudo and Aljo kind of go up and wait, and that opens the door for those three guys, like let's say Marlon Vera does beat Sandhagen, there is no doubt in my mind the UFC want O'Malley Vera 2 over having Merab in that equation.
What storyline's bigger? A rematch with Sean O'Malley and Vera, especially because Vera's only skyrocketed since then, or Merab versus either of the two?
Merab's just in a even though he just had the best performance of his career, it feels like there's so many ways where this could kind of not go well for him.
And especially, like, let's look at just the two, Merab and Sean O'Malley. They're coming off beating the same guy who had the better performance, Merab.
Right. Yeah, clearly.
But who's still the bigger name and is going to get a title shot for sure? Sean O'Malley.
Yeah. It's the way the game goes. I'm not saying I'm not saying that I am, I'm not saying that I wish that's how it would go. Obviously, we care about seeing the best fight the best.
Yeah.
And Merab feels like he should be in that kind of fight.
For sure.
But I'm not going to deny I wouldn't be excited to see O'Malley and Vera potentially run that fight back. That'd be pretty sick. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Petr Yan, though.
Kind of have to, a little, yeah.
4 or 5 losses.
That's crazy.
This one, the most decisive. Is there anything that sticks out to you, Dom, that specifically Yan needs to work on to get himself back on track?
Yeah, like that's the problem. You asked me on Friday, what is it that's, what is he not putting together? Is there something there? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there is. And even in this one, like, yeah, he got taken down 11 times, but I guess he defended 38 of them or something crazy like that. But I don't know. At the end of the day, it is losing for. And I won't even include the DQ loss. It's still 3 out of 4, 3 in a row, legitimate losses. Regardless about the Sean O'Malley one, he lost the fight. It was a close fight, and he lost it. It's all against good competition. I'm never going to say there's good losses, but there is something to be said when you lose to good competition in the way in which he did, and 2 of them were split decisions, as Noah said earlier. But is there I don't think so, because even last night, you talked on Friday about how he analyzes the first round and a half. It can put him down 1 or 2 rounds, especially in a 3-round fight. It's a big problem. In a 5-round fight, it's still a problem. But last night, he didn't even really get to do that. And that was because Merab, he didn't even have a chance to try and analyze what Merab was going to do. Which, I mean, what is there to analyze? You know what the fuck he's going to do. He's going to come straight forward anyway. Do you take a big step back here? Does Petr Yan fight like the winner of Song Yadong and Ricky Simone? Does he fight the loser of Vera Sandhagen? Or does he even go further back and fight? Fuck, dude. I don't know. There's so many great talents in this division right now. I'm blanking, of course, on names, but I almost feel like you kind of have to. And it's kind of like what we said for Corey Sandhagen. We wanted him to take a big, a step back to the back half of the top 10 or something. And he didn't. He's fighting Marlon Vera instead. So I want Petr Yan to take a big step back to someone back there. Probably won't. And maybe it's just because he is that good. There's a problem with being as good as Petr Yan, but you're losing fights. What a weird dynamic.
Yeah, this is the problem, right? Because you look at it on its surface, and it's 4 or 5 or losses, and you go, "Damn,
yeah,
it's not good." But when that's why you have to kind of take it case by case, right? You can't just look at things as like a surface level evaluation.
When you look into it, right?
Like that's no better than anybody who just pulls up the Wikipedia and sees all the red and goes, "Wow, this guy must suck," or "This guy must be slowing down," or whatever.
Yeah.
When you really look at the performances, like you can make excuses or you can rationalize the losses before. But this one was eye-opening for me, Dominic, because if you run that fight back 10 times, I don't think Yan wins a single one of them. I think I
agree. Yeah.
look that like Yan showed. He had virtually no moments in this fight. Had some decent calf kicks early, but then even Merab was doing better with those and more damage with those.
Yeah.
What I think I come to the conclusion to, and I've seen a couple video essays that have come out today or last night and some tweet threads. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm the first one to see this, but something that Yan does really well that I didn't mention on Friday. When it comes to striking defense, he's very good about having a very tight guard. Like he keeps his hands up real high and tight, a bit like a boxer typically does. And he's very good about not letting a lot of big shots sneak through. The problem in this fight was when he would do that, that immediately opened him up for double legs on double legs on double legs because your hands are up here. Where aren't they protecting your lower half?
Yeah.
And you mix in the fact that he's not a very he doesn't have a ton of movement in terms of his footwork. He's a bit of a stationary, flat-footed kind of guy in the way that he moves. And I think it was just a recipe for disaster here. So not only does he keep his hands up, which is good for striking, but it can be bad if you don't have the speed or the wherewithal to, drop him as soon as you see the shot coming in. But then he doesn't quite have the footwork, Dom, to keep himself, as not a stationary target and make him harder to even time a takedown on. I mean, he was essentially standing in front of Merab, hands up here. I mean, it was almost like I look back on it, I'm like, man, I was so dumb. Like, and I know that a lot of people had Yan. I'm like, God, like, how did I not see that coming? And to me, that makes it very clear that these are big things for him to work on. Now, if he were to come back and fight most people in this division, no matter who it is, Corey Sandhagen, Marlon Vera, you go even further down, a lot of these guys, I don't think it's quite the issue. I think he probably would still be a favorite in many of those fights, and I think he could just do what he does best and analyze and process the info and dominate the later rounds and get wins. But for him to beat these guys at the top, and I'm talking specifically Aljo and Merab, the best of the best in terms of grappling and wrestling in the division, who have great motors, great back takes, great takedowns, I don't think he has a chance if he continues the way he's going.
You want to hear what I want?
Yeah.
Okay. Because there aren't a ton of grapplers. Like there's a ton of elite talent. We know how good the division is, but there's not a ton of grapplers. But there, Ricky is another one on the back half, but he's booked, obviously. Number 11, Mr. Umar Nurmagomedov. Now,
so you really want him to go back like outside the top 10?
I think
it's not really even a step back. I mean, Umar's
exactly like rankings wise, it's a step back. Skill set wise, it's not. And
this is what I worry about, Dom. Is I get it, but if you're Petr Yan, if you're going to take a step back, what would make sense, like in a lot of ways, a matchup that feels more favorable to him, but it's still in that range. If he were to take on like a Jonathan Martinez, who just is probably going to be in the top,
he's going to get in. You're right.
After beating 14 ranked Saeed.
Yeah.
So a guy like Umar, I feel like Jan's like, no shot I'm taking that fight.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think he's more likely to take a fight with a Yadong or Simone over a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Because Umar's just, even though he's got that Nurmagomedov name, and obviously he's got that Nurmagomedov talent, he doesn't quite have the name for himself to probably make that a fight worth the risk for Petr Yan.
Yeah, for Petr
Yan. Yadong, who's main evented a card before, if Ricky beats Yadong, that would probably propel him up a little bit to where that's the step back that I foresee for him.
Yeah.
But I really don't get me wrong. If they booked it, if that fight got made, I'd be like, holy shit, what a fight. but I don't think there's a world where he takes it.
Do you almost want to see him fight though someone else that's primarily a grappler just to see maybe how big the holes
Yeah,
are
I mean,
or the gaps are?
yeah, I mean, I guess partially, if like Ricky, well, really, it's probably the loser of that fight that he would be more likely to fight. So let's say Ricky loses the song, that I wouldn't be against seeing that. I really don't. I know that that's where the hole lies. Is like those guys like Merab and Aljo are just nightmare matchups for him right now
Mm,
until he works on what he needs to work on, which I already
right.
said, the footwork and just being able to, in the moment, be more prepared for those shots and be able to move his hands quickly enough to defend himself. But with that being said, like, I don't think Ricky's at the level in terms of wrestling, grappling,
Yeah.
and not even the same style with which he implements
It
it
is different for sure.
that
Yeah.
Merab and Aljo. So yes, I get what you're saying. Like, would I prefer to see him up against a grappler? I mean, I don't know if I really have a preference one way
Yeah,
or
you're
another. I mean, if
indifferent.
you give him a striker, like that's probably a better fight, but it's
True.
also one that's probably more favorable to him.
Mm,
So is Ricky a more dangerous matchup than like a Song Yadong? Maybe,
mm,
but I don't really it doesn't really sway me one way or another. I get where you're going on that
mm, mhm.
because I typically kind of do that if a guy either hasn't fought a guy that has good wrestling or has shown a weakness against wrestling,
Yeah.
that I tend to want to see him overcome that against somebody.
Before you get back in.
But
Yeah.
here it's like I just feel like Marab and Haljo are just such a level above the rest right now in terms
Yeah.
of their wrestling. I don't know if Simone really poses the same level of threat
Mm,
that
mm.
those guys did against Yan. Not that he can't win the fight,
Right.
and
No, I
just
got
that
you.
it's just different.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's going to be interesting to see like what comes next for both.
Yeah. But Dominic, we're going to move on to kind of the rest of UFC Las Vegas. So I know you were, again, watching kind of through downtown uh, Nashville, sort of like how I had to do the prelims for UFC 285. Not in Nashville, but,
Right.
just
Right.
trying to be present, with family, friends, girlfriend, whatever, but also trying to watch these fights. So I want to kind of let you take the lead here. Where do you kind of go first in your big takeaways for UFC Las Vegas? We'll start with the main card.
Mm-hmm.
I won't do what I did last week where I like read off all the results. I think we'll touch on what we want to
Touch on
touch
what
on
we want to
here.
touch on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I kind of have two. No, I don't really. That one's kind of whatever. Mario Bautista. I was really excited to see him coming in, and I know he was a huge favorite. He was going up against 40-something-year-old Guido Cannetti. I don't care what age Guido is. He's shown to still be dangerous. He was coming in on a 2-fight finishing streak against good competition. Mario's a young guy that has treaded a little bit under the radar, but he is a good talent. And Noah said it best, and we've talked about it really the past 2 weeks about the depth of bantamweight. It's
Mhm.
insane. But now, Mario's on a 4-fight win streak, the best he's ever looked, and it's against competition that's getting better and better. Honestly, not even better and better, but it's all against competition that is good, solid, and 3 straight via submission at 29 years old, getting into his prime. He's putting all the puzzle pieces together. And man, like, honestly, I know Guido's not as close to like top 15 as what Jonathan Martinez was. So I'm not calling for top 15 next necessarily, but give Mario someone like a Jonathan Martinez esque, or maybe he even fights like Saeed next, something like that. One win away to get into top 15. I like that we're seeing a complete game start to be put together for Mario Bautista. I think he's just a young, exciting fighter, which bantamweight is full of those. So honestly, I feel like throughout the main card, main event aside, looking at it right now on my screen, he was my biggest takeaway from that main card for sure.
I can't remember if he's the one that called him out or not. Someone, I think, called this guy out. But even if not, I think it'd be a fight that makes sense next. Cody Garbrandt for Mario Bautista.
Oh, all day, all day. Give me
Cody
that.
getting back on track with the win, but
Oh,
clearly, a guy who still needs to build his confidence back up a little
that's a
bit.
fun ass fight, man.
Yeah.
Mm,
Bautista gives him a chance to jump, not just into the top 15, but I mean,
huge name.
yeah,
Mm,
huge name.
mm.
And the former champion, obviously, that's a lot of cred that could be given to Bautista, who I think is deserving of that at this point. Because Dominic, he took no disrespect to Guido Cannetti, he took him to Suplex City, bitch. I mean, the finishing
I saw
sequence
you.
of that fight
Yeah.
was there was so many. First off, I saw somebody else tweet this, Dom, through 2023, specifically for the UFC, and maybe even for all major MMA, but UFC specifically, it has been a huge, huge increase in the percentage of submission wins especially compared to KO TKO.
And lately, like the past
Well, I think
few
5
cards.
of 6 finishes on this card, or 6 of 7, whatever the number is, was submissions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, holy shit. And like through 2023 so far, it's been like the percentage has been way inflated. Typically,
Yeah,
KO
for sure.
TKO is what you get more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason this year, it's like been hot and heavy with submissions so far,
And it's
which I'm
so
not
fun to
complaining
watch,
about.
man. Yeah.
But I felt like Dominic through the weekend, because I took over tweeting duties due to your, obviously the trip you're on. There was so many instances where I wanted to tweet something about the finishing sequence, the slam into the back take and
Yeah.
getting the choke on. That happened like 3 or 4 times.
You're like, this is
So
deja vu.
I may repeat myself, but here takes Guido Cannetti to Suplex City, bitch, and then immediately locks in that choke. That was impressive. And I knew
Yeah.
he was the biggest favorite on the card. So in a way, was it like, should he do that? Sure. But I think he played a very smart fight, because
He
Guido
did.
Cannetti is his most dangerous in the very first couple minutes of the fight. He's got big power. He's got very just like, he throws a lot of spinning attacks. I mean, he's very wild with his striking. Bautista immediately off a spinning attack goes for the level change, takes him down, gets back up, but then slams him and then gets the back take and the choke. And it was all she wrote. So he played a very smart fight here.
Yes.
I think it's he looked like the minus whatever 800, 900 favorite. So why not kind of give him that leap forward and, really test himself here. So I like that as being your big takeaway. I'll start with the co-main.
Okay.
And this is a bit, I said good, the bad, the ugly. Alexandr Romanov, what happened?
Hey, dude, he went back to the original physique, by the way, too.
Yeah, he looked great
Which
in
was
his
different.
last fight coming in physique-wise, and then here, I think he gained 20 pounds or something like that as well, because I think he came in around the 240 range for the Tibura fight, and I know he lost that fight and also lost a lot of steam into the later rounds because he dominated the first round.
Yeah.
Here, he had gained like 20 pounds. A lot of people were talking about his physique. I'm not in a place to say that. I think I'll be opening myself up for some shots there. But I will say it was noticeable. The bigger problem, though, I don't really care too much about the physique. The performance was bad. I mean, Dominic, this fight lasted 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Romanov went for a pretty bad takedown attempt early. And when he didn't get it, I kid you not, he got hit with a couple good shots from Volkov. He looked
It was
overwhelmed.
over. Yeah.
And he looked already like he was gassed, like 2 minutes into the fight.
Yeah.
I understand if I was in that spot, I'd probably be gassed too after a couple minutes.
For
But
sure.
that's the problem. I'm a guy sitting here
Yeah.
and he's fighting in the best league in the world.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I mean, Volkov looked good here, and I think there is a bit of something I'm noticing over his last 2 wins that's interesting as he moves ahead. Specifically, he's much more aggressive.
I saw you say that.
Away. And I saw him do that against Rosenstruik, and then here against Romanov. That's 2 back-to-back first-round finishes, by the way.
And he should. Like, he's a good kickboxer.
Yeah,
he
he's
should
good,
be more aggressive.
but his problem has always been, I feel like he lets the fight come to him too often. He's a bit past. When you look at the fight with Gon, or even guys more wrestling heavy, like or not wrestling heavy, but Tom Aspinall, who had a thorough beatdown of him, or Curtis Blades, who kind of wrestle fucked him for 5 rounds. Like, he's a bit too hesitant to really get in there. And you saw glimpses of this style coming in when he beat Overeem. Looked damn good doing it.
He did,
But
man.
then
I
over the
remember
last
that.
2 fights, I mean, this is the kind of Volkov that we need to see moving forward. Do I have a ton of confidence that he can beat one of these top 5 guys in the division? No, because he's already fought a few of
He
them.
has fought a lot, yeah.
If you look at the guys ahead of him, he's already fought Gane. He's already fought Blades. He's already fought Aspinall. You know, Stipe is obviously not going to fight him.
You know what the interesting one is, I think, to see if he can keep being aggressive.
I want to hear it because I have a guy in mind. I want to hear what you think.
There's a guy that is top echelon, which is where Volkov has kind of hovered for a while, that is always going to be aggressive. And I want to see if Volkov would keep this aggression streak that he's on. It's Tai Tuivasa.
Yep, 100% agree.
That's the fight next for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Such a weird matchup because obviously,
and the size difference
Volkov with the size, but then you have Tuivasa with the power, and both guys, if they both come out aggressive at one another,
dude,
very interesting fight.
And if Volkov isn't aggressive in that one, behind the 8 ball,
he's gonna get clocked, gonna get absolutely cleaned, like he did against like Derek Lewis. You know, even though that happened later in that fight, but Tuivasa. Dude. I don't care if he's lost the last couple fights. That man, he nearly knocked out Ciryl Gane. So
yeah, dude, that's the fight. Man.
Yeah, no, I love that fight. But for Romanov, I already wasn't very high on this guy. I kind of said like I look back, he had that technical decision win over I forget the fucking guy's name he beat, but it was a guy who had won one of the seasons at the Ultimate Fighter. I think it was the season that Stipe and DC were coaches. But anyways, when he beat that guy, you know, did you look
Juan Espino?
Yeah, Juan Espino. Yes. Yeah. So Juan Espino, I think, is in his 40s, which at heavyweight, you know,
it's doable.
As big, it's doable. But Romanov showed gassing heavy, like in that 3rd round, and then I think Espino threw a nut shot or something, and then it went to a technical decision. Romanov got the win. But he was slowing down fast in that fight. And then you see the Tybura fight where he kind of did the same thing. So when I took the under 2.5, which I know we're talking about the betting in a little bit, but my rationale in my head was if Volkov can survive the 1st round, I think he can pick apart Romanov and finish him on the feet. But Romanov here didn't even – I mean, the guy who smashed Tybura had like 66 strikes to 1. To 0 in the 1st round. That guy was nowhere to be found here.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of controversy. I mean, Volkov did have a little bit of a fence grab, a pretty bad one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then it might have been a clash of heads that kind of caused some damage at one point. But I don't know, Dom. This was not the kind of showing Romanov needed to get back on track. And that's 2 losses in a row. To me, Dom, I'm more. If you were to ask me, do I believe is he more of a Tom Aspinall or a like a guy that kind of like a Augusto Sakai? I'm going to say he's more Augusto Sakai right now.
No, I mean that's completely fair, and you know, it just has to be proven otherwise. Like honestly, a performance like this. Take a step out of the even top 15 fight-wise, too. Like, I know it's not, like, the biggest division in terms of depth, but there's people back there that he can fight. So
I got the matchup for you, and I'm going to hope when I say this they haven't fought already.
I'll confirm.
Give him my man, Andrei Arlovsky.
That's available.
Who will win that fight via decision.
Right.
No,
I like that.
Aside, but,
I do.
I do think that's the kind of fight that I would like to see him take on because
I think so.
Arlovsky, a veteran, a guy that's like the way that I mean Arlovsky's not breaking down, you know, any new doors anytime soon. I mean, he kind of is who he is at this age, at this point in his career. Not an easy guy to finish.
No.
I know he did get finished. Wasn't it Rogerio de Lima finished him in their last fight? And before that, he got finished by Aspinall. But a pretty hard guy to finish at this point in his career. He's really improved his IQ to a point where, and obviously he's got so much experience.
And he won't get tired in a 3-round fight.
And he always is able to go to full 15.
Yeah.
Romanov going to be a tough guy, a tough matchup for him in round 1. But again, if he survives it,
Yep.
he's purely capable of winning those next 2 rounds. So I think that's the kind of fight I'd like to see Romanov take, like a guy outside the top 15, but still a name, a veteran
Yeah.
matchup. Yeah.
I think we nailed heavyweights there.
Yeah. So what do you have next on the main card? Anything else?
Oh man. I guess I kind of would like you to touch a little bit on Martinez Nurmagomedov, at least rounds 1 and 2, because I didn't get to see those much. Because I know going in, we were most excited for that one outside of the main event. I just kind of want to hear what you thought about that one, since I didn't get my full attention on that one. Because it was an awesome fight on paper going in for sure.
Yeah, it was a solid fight. Very close. Very close. And actually the first round was a lot of fun. I even tweeted about it that Saeed, his ability to take the back is so quick and so fast. And as soon as he gets it, he's not letting go. It's like a backpack on you, like just immediately has it. But Jonathan Martinez, able to fight out of multiple submission attempts. I mean, it was a great first round, but it looked like Saeed just had a lot more weapons than Martinez. But I think it was in round 2, Martinez landed a really nice elbow up close, and it might have broke the nose of Nurmagomedov, and that became quite a factor for him the rest of the way, not quite able to take the durability. Didn't want to quite take too many more shots on that nose, and it also might have been affecting his breathing, so I think he was gassing a little quicker than Martinez. When the fight was over, I probably scored it 2-1 for Saeed, but I wasn't mad when the decision was read off and Martinez got his hand raised. I was surprised because it was unanimous, and you look at a guy with the Nurmagomedov name, you think he might get the benefit of the doubt. Didn't happen. And what a win for Martinez. I mean, regardless of if you thought he won or not, to beat a guy like Saeed Nurmagomedov, who, yes, this is not his first loss in the UFC. His only other loss was to Raoni Barcelos, but Martinez just looks so much better than he did when he was early on in his career. This was a guy who had dropped a couple fights early. I think he was a bit of a 500 guy.
I was just about to say,
what's he rattled off since? Like 5 straight wins now?
Yeah, dude. He started 4-3, and now he's won 5 in a row. At the last 2, Cub Swanson and now Saeed. Yeah. And before Cub, it was even Vince Morales. Like, that's 3 really solid ass wins in a row. He's another guy similar to Mario Bautista. They're just putting it all together right now. They're getting their biggest wins as they enter their prime, and that's what makes it exciting to see what is next for these types of guys.
Yeah, so after his last win against Cub, he called out Dominic Cruz, which I think we all kind of thought probably wouldn't happen, but he doubled down on it. He called out Dominic Cruz again, and I believe he called out someone else. He might have been the one to call out Cody Garbrandt, but I thought it was oh no, he called out, actually, I'll tell you, this will be an interesting one. What do you think about him? He called out Davison Figueiredo.
What? Oh shit!
Yeah,
he's coming up to 135, bro. Ooh.
Would that be if you're like when Davison's coming up? Where do you feel like his first fight should take place? Is it should he be immediately in the top, 5, 6, 7 matchup, or is he a guy that you could see taking a fight like that?
I
feel like he should be fighting top level competition. I mean, not that Martinez
isn't.
So? Yeah. I feel like he should be fighting. I mean, actually, I think him versus Dominic Cruz would be a fight that made sense. The 2 guys that Martinez called out. But
I feel like a perfect introductory fight for Davison is either a back half top 15, like 10 through 15. And I'm only saying, not that I'm saying he doesn't like belong in the top 5, but there's just so many right now that are vying for the title. That's the only reason. So a guy 10 to 15, which Jonathan will be come Tuesday, or him versus Cody. But I really liked what you said with Cody fighting Mario. So let's do Martinez at number 14 versus Davison. Ooh, damn. I love that. I love that call out. And if he doesn't get Davison, I love him fighting Dominic Cruz as Jonathan Martinez. I think that's a good step back for Dom.
Cruz, I can't figure out what Dominic Cruz is doing, because everything he says tells you, oh, he only wants like big legacy fights,
And then he
But
fights
then
Casey Kenny.
then he fights Casey Kenny. So
Yeah.
I mean, he did come off the Marlon Vera fight where I thought he looked pretty good up until, I mean, he got knocked the fuck out. But he still looked good in that fight, and I still think Dominic Cruz is a bit slept on in terms of
I agree.
where
Still
he is
do.
in this division. Now, did that finish? Is that gonna, hurt him over time? It might. I mean, that could be the one that really
Yeah.
sends him into a spiral, but I hope not. I really think he's still got more left than that. So, I don't hate it. Jonathan Martinez, I think, is deserving of getting a guy in kind of that Dominic Cruz range. You could have argued he could have been ready for it after his last fight. He could have been the guy who was in like the Trevin Jones spot of fighting Cody Garbrandt, that unranked fighter. But he's also a much more dangerous guy than Trevin Jones. So I kind of get probably why Cody preferred the Trevin Jones matchup. But
you know what a sick fight would be? Sorry, real quick.
No,
Jonathan Martinez, Adrian Yanez. That'd be fire.
That's a sick fight. That is a sick fight.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on Nikita Krylov, Ryan Spann real quick?
I mean, unless you want to, I figure we'll probably just touch on it more so in the bet slip, honestly. But we can if you have any takeaways.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything we could really add that's not going to be said. It was exactly the fight that we thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
It was balls to the wall. There was a frenetic pace from start to finish. I think it was a fight that only lasted 3.5 minutes. But Dominic, I think there was 3 submission attempts, 4 reversals, and like 2 takedowns. Like there was so much that happened in that time. And being that we each had kind of a dog in the fight, both betting on Ryan Spann, made it so stressful.
Oh yeah, it was a stressful.
And obviously it kind of hurt at the end. But yeah, we can talk about that more in betting. Actually, I will just say though, this is a fight that I think it got fight of the night. Vitor Petrino and Anton Turkalj.
Okay, yeah, I saw a bit of this.
Shit, Dom. Not the most technical fight ever. Both guys, but it was just a wild fight. I mean, this is the kind of fight that's going to win or be in the sweepstakes for the Just Bleed or whatever we call it category come the end of the year. And I actually think Vitor Petrino is an interesting prospect because he's built like a brick shit house.
Dude, yeah.
He's 8-0.
Yeah.
7 finishes, I believe. Maybe 6. I don't know. But only 25 years old. And here, don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect. Not by any means. This was not this. It was kind of like it's kind of like when your mom tells you we have Yuri Prohaska, Glover Teixeira at home. It's a step down from the kind of caliber those 2 guys were. But when like Anthony Smith got a lot of flack for saying that like Glover and Yuri didn't have great performances in that fight.
Yeah.
There is a little something to that. Like it was a bit sloppy, but just really good and fun and a lot of heart being displayed. Not necessarily the best display of the skill sets of each guys, but a lot of heart, a lot of durability, a lot of reversals. I mean, it was very exciting to watch. That's what this fight was, just on a smaller scale. And Vitor Petrino is an interesting guy, though. I think due to the age, 25, he's my age. But he looks like a whole ass man. I mean, he's like Carlos and bench warmers.
This is the second coming of Michel Pereira here.
And only 8 professional fights. Like, yeah, he's a little green. But I want to see what he's got. Fucking lead in his hands, and he was hurting Turkalj early. And even in some of the grappling, like at one point, Turkalj had his back, had a body triangle on Dom, and Petrino, out of pure athleticism, was able to reverse the position. I don't know if I've ever seen it when a guy was able to reverse a body triangle, but he just forced his way through it. A bit of Derek Lewis jitsu, going on.
Do you know what I like too about this? And for both guys, but specifically the winner and Petrino, we need people like this that are younger coming up at light heavyweight. We need it. It's a division that doesn't run very deep. So to get guys in there like this in that back half, is what this division needs. So I like that there. I'm glad you gave him a little shine.
Yeah. How about the prelims? What anything sticking out to you there?
Okay, so let me think here. I have to pull the card back up to get the names in my head. What was the one I wanted to discuss? Oh, okay, yeah. Very early second fight of the night. Bruno Silva, Tyson Nam. We love the flyweights. Bruno Silva has been on the radar these past couple of fights that he's had. What is it specifically? 3 straight wins since starting 0-2 in the
Dominic,
UFC.
he hasn't fought in 2 years, so it was.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right.
So he had quite the layoff coming. I think a lot of people had forgotten about him.
For sure, man. And what a way to get back in there. You beat number 15, Tyson Nam, a guy that is always in low-key fun fights. I still will never forget Tyson Nam versus Matt Schnell. I'll never forget that fight and talking about it on the podcast for, reasons related to Pixar as well. But, we'll forget about that. He's a fun fighter. And Bruno looked good. Bruno's a dangerous guy. He's finished 9 out of 13. To do that against Tyson Nam, even though it goes against my bet slip by literally 1 minute and 6 seconds is all I needed. That says a lot. What a way to get back in there, to get a ranking next to your name. It's a fun fighter in a division that is super fun to watch right now. The flyweights stay delivering on these fight night and pay-per-view cards. Bruno Silva, from the fights I got to pay full attention to and get takeaways from, was my biggest standout from the prelims.
Yeah, I think anything else from the prelims I'll probably touch on in the bet slip. So probably a smart idea to kind of hold off on that discussion. That's actually good call on the fly by Dom to kind of set that standard. Let's talk about Bellator, Dominic, specifically the Lightweight Grand Prix. I struggled to find a headline for this one, Dom, because you have 2 fights and both complete opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of my emotions about them, my takeaways from them. Well, I'll just say Usman Nurmagomedov is still your lightweight champion. He runs through Benson Henderson in 2 minutes, 37 seconds, gets the submission, rear naked choke. Co-main event, the fight that everybody was excited about, that everybody was talking up, if you know, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandr Chablis does get credited with the TKO over Tofik Musayev, 29 seconds of round number 3. But Dominic, talk about a disappointment.
Yeah.
This fight stunk to high heavens. And it's a shame because both guys are really good.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Not a good fight.
Yeah.
But a lot of controversy in this fight. And that's why the headline is what it is. Would it be a Bellator event without some weirdness going on? I mean, that's just such a Bellator staple.
And to take it a step further, can a Bellator Grand Prix ever have a normal start? Really? Like, I can't recall.
It's not capable of happening. So we'll start by I guess, Dominic, we kind of made the bold claim. For one, we both bet on Tofik Musayev, but we took it a step further by saying the winner of this fight was kind of our dark horse to potentially win the whole thing. Yeah. A lot of people think that Usman Nurmagomedov, AJ McKee is going to be that finals matchup. And I could see Chablis not only just upsetting like a McKee or Pitbull, but even dethroning the guy that everybody thinks is, one of the best in the world, Usman Nurmagomedov. Now that the fights have taken place, I know we talked about this a little bit off recording, but considering we saw both Usman and Chablis here, do you kind of want to walk that one back, or do you feel like we're still not going to put too much stock on that fight?
I'm not going to give up on the dream fully just yet. I mean, I'll tell you this. I would definitely still be intrigued with a Chablis versus Usman final if that's the case. But after watching Usman last night, I don't care the age or the fight years on Benson Henderson. He dismantled him. And he really needed it. I know you kind of said you didn't feel he needed it, something like that, but it would be nice for him to have a performance like that. And I was kind of on the other end, I just wanted to, I know that potential's there. I thought he could have finished Patricky when we were watching in Chicago. If he really, really wanted to.
He played it a little safe in that fight.
Yeah, for sure. So now he's got 6 fights in Bellator. He's finished 4 of them. He's the champion. He's made a title defense. That was last night or Friday night was that moment where I felt, all right, Usman now can become the face of Bellator. I think he can after that. I think they can do something big with him if they decide to promote, their company in general and fights and fighters better. Didn't want to take a complete dig there. But I'm not going to give up completely. I like the idea of Chablis potentially upsetting Patricky and AJ, making it to the finals. But I don't see Usman getting upset in his semifinal fight. Like he's going to be in the finals for sure. And I definitely favor him over Chablis, but I do have intrigue. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I kind of feel similar. Like, I kind of wanted to be bold.
Yeah.
Because of that, I felt like, those two guys, Chablis and Musayev, weren't getting nearly enough talk about just even making it to the finals. Like, I feel like everybody kind of thinks AJ McKee is the favorite to do so, and I get
Yeah.
it. I get it to a point, but it's still somewhat of a new division for him. His only win is Spike Carlisle. I mean, shout out to Spike, Dominic's favorite fighter. He got announced he's fighting at Ryzen coming up in like a couple months.
My God, he's everywhere. I love Spike.
Yeah, I almost put it on our fight announcements just to get your thoughts on it. But yeah, him and guy Bellator. Why do I always do this? I always want to bring up names and then I can't remember names. Juan Archuleta is also fighting on the
in Ryzen.
Card.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. But it's just funny that Spike Carlisle's fighting on like a card that's usually features so many Japanese fighters and just international fighters.
And here's
you got Spike Carlisle.
Yeah.
The hero to us Americans. But anyways, I do think, like, even though Spike Carlisle is a fine fighter, he's a fun fighter, AJ McKee beating him doesn't necessarily tell me that he's all of a sudden like a far better fighter in lightweight than he was at featherweight. His time at featherweight kind of ended a little with some question marks. And here at lightweight, I'm not exactly sure if I'm ready to say that those questions don't matter yet. I feel like even though we a lot of what you said about Usman right there, the face of Bellator, at least I remember myself said similar things about AJ McKee when he beat Patricio Pitbull.
Yeah.
And then the rematch was just kind of a dud.
I know, like that loss took away potential for him to like. It's like he became the face, and then as soon as he lost, went away. Yeah. And ever since, they don't really have like that guy or girl, for that matter, to be the face. And I feel like
who was the last? Like, who really was the face of Bellator? Like, is Bellator? I mean, I guess Patricio in a lot of ways.
Patricio in his prime,
Michael
and like
Chandler, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe early on would Eddie Alvarez maybe have been a guy.
So really, you can almost make the argument since AJ beat Patricio the first time, because they were almost like fighting for the face. AJ won, so he kind of got it, but then he lost again, and now it's just like, oh well, neither one of you can be the face. Right now.
It was just kind of a weird thing about that, but it does feel like a lot of its stock dropped, even though the fight itself was very close. And I don't know, I'm not sure if it deserved that. But it did make me ask a lot of questions about McKee, because his head was up going into that fight. He was talking about the UFC and all these
money and
all this stuff. And then it felt like that might have potentially taken away from his preparation for that fight, because the performance was a little flat.
And I think it's bold of people to assume, off of a Spike Carlisle win, shout out again, that he can come in here and even beat Patrici. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true. Like, I have seen a couple people that think Patrici might be more, kind of a popular underdog pick in some ways. So no, I would not be super shocked. I do favor McKee in that matchup, but considering that's the brother of Patricio, who does have a win and has fought McKee twice.
Yep.
There's gonna be a lot of, knowledge about McKee's skill set in that gym. So it is something worth noting. I guess we should probably talk about the controversy with the co-main.
A little bit.
So Chablis throws a front kick to the solar plexus of Tawfiq Musayev after a really just sluggish first two rounds. Just not a great fight, but he throws it. Musayev, it looks, when in real time, it looks like it's kind of a shot to the solar plexus, but then to the nuts as well. So then Herzog calls time, as you would do for a nut shot, and you would think Musayev's being given 5 minutes to recover. Well, Herzog goes over to his fellow officials that are outside the cage and pulls them. And they say, no, the damage was done by the blow to the solar plexus, the stomach area, whatever, the abdomen, and that the ricochet into the nuts was purely incidental. The grazing of the cup or nut shot was purely incidental, which I'm still not fully. I still don't know how I fully feel about this, but anyways.
Yeah,
So then he has a choice to make, and he decides that, well, if the damage was done if they're telling me the damage was done by the shot to the stomach, then I need to get this fight restarted immediately.
mm,
So Musayev doesn't speak English. Then it became a very clunky affair of Herzog trying to get one of the cornermen of Musayev to come to the cage and translate to Musayev that he needs to go. He needs to know if he can go right now. And basically, Musayev ended up waving him off. Fight's over. TKO win for Chablis. Afterwards, Scott Coker came out and did say Musayev suffered a broken rib from that shot. So it sounds like the right choices ultimately were made. But it does make me wonder, Dom, a bit of what you said off recording about, like, due to the lack of English speaking for Musayev, and you got a guy who's not a natural, from what I understand, he's a corner man. He's not a translator.
Yeah,
Sure, he
yeah.
might know both languages, but to have a professional translator there would have probably been able to convey the point a little better.
Mhm,
It makes you wonder if Musayev really understood the moment of what he
mhm.
was doing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's $1 million tournament here,
Yeah.
and maybe that injury was so bad, the broken rib was bad enough to where he was just like not able to go. But it does make you wonder if he really knew that he was looking at a loss,
And not a no contest. Yeah.
that would he have continued going? Don't you
Right.
think?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I saw some people saying that as well on Twitter. And the whole other thing is like, he still did get grazed in the balls. Like, did they
That's
ever come
kind of
out and
my
say that
thing.
it didn't hit his nuts? So,
No,
like, what's
like
it matter?
so, John Morgan, I believe, or not? No, was it John? No, I
It was
think it
probably
was John
John or
Morgan. I think
Aaron.
John
Yeah.
Morgan was there,
Okay.
and he was able to get like a quick interview with Herzog immediately after. And by what they were saying, they were acknowledging that there was a grazing of the cup.
So, like,
But apparently, the problem was that the damage was due to the kick to the stomach, not the grazing of the nuts.
see, here's my thing though. Who are the refs to say that the damage was caused by that? You don't know his pain level from getting kicked
Right.
in the cup, the groin. So like, regardless of him getting hit in the sternum, I feel like if you're already giving him a break and you saw he clearly got hit low, you have to. I feel like he should have still gotten the 5 minutes. And this is betting aside, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we
Like,
did have a
truthfully,
bet
it
on
is.
Musayev, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I feel like the right decisions were made once you know in hindsight what all came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, they don't know that it's a broken rib. They don't know. It
Yeah.
feels like some assumptions were made that they kind of got lucky were accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I'm going to
probably a
assume
great
that
way to put it.
Musayev's pain was due to that broken rib. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound fun at all.
Right. Right.
But for them to assume that in the moment feels a bit, well, presumptuous.
And in that big of a circumstance,
Yeah, and,
man.
so I did see a lot of people giving credit to Herzog for his handling of the situation, and while I'm not saying any other ref would have done it any better, because it was just an awkward and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
clunky set of circumstances. Bellator not having a translator, like, right there was just weird
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
bad. Yeah.
Um, but I'm not gonna quite give Herzog, like, a ton of praise either. I mean, he's one of the best in the world,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
this one situation doesn't necessarily take away from that. But I'm not gonna, throw roses at his feet and tell him what a great
Mm,
job he did when
mm.
I don't necessarily know if I would say that. Like,
Right. Right.
I feel like there was some, it was just a clunky time frame. It was weird. That was weird. That's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. There's no better way to put it.
And it's that par for the course for Bellator, and yes, their Grand Prix.
Mm.
It's always something. But Chablis does move on. I mean, honestly, Dom, the only thing that might have made it more weird is if there was a no contest. Like, well, I guess, that fight has to be run back. I mean, that's
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
that might have been the only thing worse for as far as the future of this tournament.
Mm.
But we still don't even have a date for McKee Pitbull, so everything's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand these dates, by the way. If you're having a Grand Prix and these people are supposed to fight each other, they should all have very similar timelines.
Yeah,
But
like, I
no,
feel like 2
like
on one card, 2 on another
like the one
makes
in 3
sense.
weeks at
Yeah,
most.
because
Yeah.
then you give the same amount of time of preparation, you know,
But
it's like
no, AJ doesn't have a date. In the other one, the Brent Primus fight, it's happening in May. That's
yeah.
2 months from now. I think it's May 12th. 2 months from the day we're recording this. How's that a fair timeline? Because someone is not going to have the same recovery time as the other, and that doesn't
Well, it
seem
kind
fair
of
to me.
honestly, it does feel weird though that the guy that'd be getting screwed in this scenario is McKee or Pitbull, which I don't feel like Bellator would
Want to happen.
want to do that. So I don't think it's like a malpractice in terms of like they're trying to favor somebody to
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
But
I
I
don't
just
know.
think that it just seems like it doesn't make a ton of sense. But
Yeah.
weird start to the Grand Prix, but we're obviously still excited to see how it goes from here. Anything else from the main card that was kind of jumping out at you, Dom?
I mean, well,
No.
there's
I
one
mean,
that's
if
kind
you
of
said no, I'd be like, come on. There's gotta be
I mean,
one.
I feel like leaving the well that was weird on kind of fits right now because of the way Michael Page's fight with Goichi Yamauchi went. I'll tell you right now, I ain't never. There's been some shit seen in MMA
Yeah.
that we've seen injury wise. I ain't never seen a kneecap move up into someone's lower thigh. Well, I can check that off of the bucket list after that one, Noah.
I'm sure you've been waiting for it. That's what you've been waiting to see.
I mean, it made me a little oozy. I showed Jaden, got her a little oozy. She said, "Oh, get that away from me," and I didn't blame her. Michael Page threw a kick straight to the damn knee, and if that's not bad enough, you're gonna
First strike of the
break
fight.
first strike of the fight. You break Goichi's fucking kneecap. I ain't never seen nothing like it. Didn't know that was even possible to do, but
26 seconds, Dom, of the first round. And you know, you want to know what's funny? So I was at work during my lunch break. Maybe I shouldn't be disclosing that in case anybody's watching, but I was placing my bets for the weekend during my lunch break at work. And luckily, due to sometimes the internet's real bad there, you already know this. So sometimes I try to place bets, and then all of a sudden DraftKings is telling me, we can't actually find your location. We think you might be in a different state. I'm like, I just placed a bet
yeah.
2 seconds ago, and now you're telling me I can't? Well, you want to know what that bet was that it refused to let me put in?
You took a Yamauchi money line.
Yamauchi money line.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for that because then I was able to think about it a little more, and I was like, I don't know. I don't
I'll just hold off in general. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously in hindsight, that proved to be a wise decision. And maybe that was God's way of saying, nah, bro. Nah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about Michael Page. Talk about a guy that just has, I don't know where I really don't know how good he really is.
Yeah.
But boy, is he exciting. And he is now responsible for 2 of the craziest
That's so
knockouts I've ever seen. You know what the other one I'm talking about, right? Cyborg Santos.
Oh my
He's the one
gosh.
who threw the flying knee that caved his fucking skull in.
Oh my gosh.
And now here with Yamauchi, a single leg kick completely broke this man's kneecap. I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy who throws with like this crazy amount of power,
he's
but
got
yet
it.
he's leaving a super devastating impact on the guys he's fighting. And Dominic, I mean, with a fight like that, the way that just went and the amount of clips I saw going around of that and stuff, there's no doubt in my mind Michael Page is fighting Yaroslav Amosov next. I mean,
I'd
there's
say
no doubt in
so.
my mind. And I can't blame him because Michael Page is such a big star for them in a lot of ways and for that European market especially. And Yaroslav Amosov is definitely building himself up a similar way. He just headlined the card over in Dublin. So
yeah,
I don't love Michael Page's chances in that fight, but when you have a guy who is capable of doing this at any second, you can't count him out.
yeah. I think that's a fun fight. Hopefully, Amosov can fight again in 2023, late this year. I know they're going back to Dublin in September. Hey, it's
You would think though you probably are going to try to go more for like a London type deal with MVP.
Yeah, London would be bigger for sure, but just like if they can't, to keep it in Europe in
Right.
general. If they can't do London, do Dublin in September. That's the fight. He earned it. He earned it after that. I mean, holy shit. He broke a kneecap. He got it. He got it.
Is anybody can we let Michael Page walk out the zombie if they do that? Or does it have to be Peter Queally?
Peter Queally will undoubtedly be on that card. So
I think Peter
like,
Queally needs to stay away from Ireland.
I said it when thank you.
I
He's
know,
had
I
3
know.
straight
You
losses
said
there.
it. Look,
We can't do it no more.
I love the walkout. It's an all-timer, but it just sucks that he keeps losing with it.
Yeah. So maybe if he's not on the card, MVP gets the honorary zombie walkout.
That'd be pretty cool. I will mention Linton Vassell redeeming his only loss at heavyweight to Valentin Moldavsky. And God, something about this felt just as brutal as the fight before it. A minute 3 minutes 3 seconds. Dom, what the reason why it felt a bit like when he hurt Moldavsky, it reminded me, the new Scream movie just came out. I'm sure you'll be going to see it at some point. And it reminded me a bit of like a slasher when he has the slasher or the killer has one of the victims hurt, as he did to Moldavsky. And when he was able to just kind of jump straight into mount, and he just threw 2 elbows, and the second one had Moldavsky out cold.
It was bad.
It reminded me of like a killer, just like a couple stabs done.
Yeah.
Like it reminded me of a slasher movie. The way he hit that finish sequence kind of came about. But what a win for Linton Vassell. Dominic, he's 5-1 now at heavyweight. And that was his only loss. That was his debut at heavyweight.
Yeah.
And he just redeemed it. First round finish. Before this, he finished Tim Johnson in the first round. 4 of his 5 wins at heavyweight have been via TKO. So, or KO TKO. So I guess to me, like, I want to see this. I think he needs to fight Ryan Bader. And I think that's an awesome fight. Vassell is 39 years old, but I think the move to heavyweight has kept his career, has extended his career.
Yeah.
He felt like he was middling out at light heavyweight. He had lost back-to-back fights. He moves up to heavyweight, loses a third one in a row, and now he's rattled off 5 straight wins. But he looks damn good. And I don't know if Ryan Bader should probably be the favorite in that fight, but man, I'm not counting out Vassell if that matchup comes to fruition.
Well, Noah, we got to talk about this too, because like you just said, he redeemed his first loss at heavyweight to Valentin just now, or on Friday night. Well, part of that 2-fight skid at light heavyweight, one of them was Ryan Bader.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes,
I did not know that.
sir. Yeah. So absolutely, that's the next title fight.
I must have forgot that fight happened. Dominic, this could be the redemption tour for Linton Vassell.
Imagine that, man. 3 straight wins against top 10, 2 finishes in a row. He's gonna get to run it back with Ryan Bader up a weight class at heavyweight now. Storylines. We don't get a ton at Bellator, but when we do, sometimes they're fun. There's one of them.
As far as the prelims, was there anything you wanted to touch on there?
For me, I did Friday night. I didn't get to see many prelims, but if you felt the need to touch on it, I did want to hear a little bit about Barzola Perez because we talked about it on Friday. If you had any takeaways, if not, completely fine.
Barzola looked very good.
That's what I was curious, man. I was.
Yeah, and I didn't realize this when we were previewing it, but this was Barzola moving up to featherweight. So, he was in the Bantamweight Grand Prix, and I thought he looked really good here. Eric Perez was definitely game, but it just felt like Barzola was a step ahead the entire fight. And we'll touch on it a little bit more in the bet portion.
Yeah, you bet on that.
My parlays, but. Yeah, so that's it really for the Bellator. I mean, shout out to Dovletsan Yakshimuradov getting a win over Julius Anglickas as well.
That's big.
That is. I think Dovletsan's he's a very fun fighter to watch. I didn't see a ton of that fight, to be honest. Kind of had to hit the little boys' room for a big portion of that fight. But I can't really speak to the quality of the fight. But Yakshimuradov typically is in very fun fights, and I don't know if this one was all that fun or not, but he did get a win. He's 2-2 now in Bellator. I'd like to see him kind of continue. And a win over Anglicus means a little something. I know
That's
Anglicus was a
top
late
5.
replacement for a title fight, but the best name in MMA, Dovletsan Yagshimuradov. Don't forget it.
There you go.
Let's move on, Dom, to the below average bet slip.
Ah, shit.
Wish we could come to you guys with a better result here. Dominic, off top, do you have the calculations as far as what our end result was for the week? Do you have that on you?
That's going to have to be up on the screen here.
Okay.
But I mean, I can give my individuals.
I know that we had a minus weekend.
Yeah.
Dominic, I know that when I was doing the bet slip before, specifically 2022, there were many weeks where I, didn't do my best. I had a lot of losing weeks. I did not have a great 2022 MMA betting wise. And you kind of carried the ship a lot of ways. You tried to keep us steady. So I cannot fault you for having a bad week here because I've had so many myself. And I'm sure I'm bound to have a couple more.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can fault you for the lack of preparation. Dominic, I noticed it this week. I could tell it felt a bit like when I was in high school, I would always do my homework 10 minutes before the class I was going to. That's what it felt a little bit. It felt like your bets were coming in without a ton of thought behind them and was just to get them in time. Do you have a response? Do you have a rebuttal to this claim?
Well, it's going to be UFC specifically. 0-3 for me on that card. I think for one, that's a fair assessment. And it is, I actually do regret taking two guys from the Contender Series, one that was debuting, the other who had debuted prior against Jalton Almeida, and taking them inside the distance. I regret that one. Now, the over 1.5 parlay, I don't regret. Henry Gravely was like the lock of the night for me at over 1.5. I should have just threw $1,000 on that to happen. But Nam Silva, shout out to our boy GC on the MMA Hour. He's been huge on the flyweight unders. I should have known that when he put out the under 2.5, who am I to go and take the over 1.5? Now, granted, both can happen in the same fight and both hit, but I probably should have stayed away from that one. So, I mean, I guess out of the 4 total parlay legs, I regret 2 in a way, but I think I've had a lot worse beats than this weekend.
I'm not mad at you, but I'm very disappointed. And again, it's not the losses. You could have won every bet on here, and I'd still be telling you, while you're honky-tonking it up in Tennessee, half-assing your bets, I'm in the lab, Dom, for hours on end.
Yeah.
I want you to look yourself in the mirror when this is over.
And
I want you to figure out what kind of sports bettor do you want to be. Okay?
Yeah.
So you do that, and we can have a we can come back to this for next Friday. But are you going to be the sports bettor who's just happy with a couple good weeks here and there, but is always losing? Or do you want to be the goddamn best sports bettor in the world? Now, as far for my picks, I did end up with a slightly positive day, but I think that's offset by the fact that I had maybe the worst parlay ever. 3-leg moneyline parlay, all 3 losers.
Yeah,
Petr Yan, Saeed Nurmagomedov, JJ Aldridge. Only one of those was even close. It happens. I'll take it. Hey, the Bellator heavy favorites parlay. The only one that I thought was risky on that was Enrique Barzola. And
dude, I saw you have that. I'm like, oh shit, because I had the other same 3 legs, and I'm like, if mine hits and his loses because of Barzola, I'm gonna fucking cry.
I was gonna bomb it. I was gonna bomb it a little bit.
Yeah.
I have this mindset since I've come back where I refuse to do minus money parlays.
I
Like,
remember yeah.
Meanwhile, Dominic had 3 minus money parlays. But I mean, hey, but yeah, difference of mindset here.
Right.
But since I've come back, that's been like something I just can't do. Like, I'm like, if I have a minus money parlay, I'm doing it wrong. Like, there's gotta be if you're gonna do a parlay, you need to be doing it for plus money. That's in my head what I've accepted.
Yeah.
So luckily it didn't cost me with that one, but Barzola was the one that I was, because truthfully, Dom, I am so happy. The only other option I thought to put on there was Moldavsky. And I'm so happy that I didn't do that. I felt more confident in Barzola, but I didn't even realize going in this was a featherweight fight. Like, there was a lot of room for that one to blow up in my face. It didn't, thankfully. Is there anything I really regret? Ryan Spann money line, the man looked like he had a submission locked in for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
At plus 145, I would take that if that fight got ran back 10 times, he'd probably win 5 of them. So the plus money, if the odds were reversed, I would have taken Krylov. So that's just the way it was for that fight. Davey Grant, shout out to him. Coming in clutch. I took him money line minus 130. He looked like he was going to drop the fight on the scorecards to a sunset. He even had a point deducted at round 3. Then he goes for broke, lands a beautiful spinning back elbow, I guess, or spinning back fist, I think it was. Drops a sunsal, is able to lock in a reverse triangle attempt. Chokes him unconscious. Jesus, just what a performance. But yeah, I overall went like positive, I think just over a unit or something like that. So far through 2 weeks, and I had big positive weeks, but I'll take it.
2 greens in a row. That's a good confidence boost.
My best work seems to be like off the bet slip. Like boxing, I've done really well on, and then I had the live bet on Alexa Grasso last week. So I need to just kind of try to hone in some of that energy a little more, because I want to get a little more bigger positives.
I want big weeks.
Through 2 weeks, I'm like probably close to 2 units positive, but not quite. So that's something personally I want to try to work on. But yeah, I'm okay with it. So now, Dominic, we will transition into the only way we could end this show. We don't know any other way.
Nope.
A little segment we like to call closing statements. Point of show where me and Dominic talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. So, Dominic, instead of just opening it up to you, I want to start by asking you, do you actually have something for this closing statements? Like, is there something you came prepared with?
Not
because I want to throw you one, because I have something I want to talk about, but then I realized there might be 2 things I want to talk about.
Okay.
So I want to give you one if you don't have something planned.
Honestly, mine wasn't going to be great, so I'd prefer to take both of yours and go.
I feel like we should talk about the retirements from the weekend. We did not actually.
We probably should. Yeah.
So I'll let you talk for it, though.
Yeah. So obviously, I got to see the Benson Henderson one. What a legend, honestly.
Underrated career at this point. I think he's a guy that through time people have forgotten his greatness, because so many fans have came in, including myself, after his time in the UFC was pretty much done.
Yeah, and even before the UFC, the WEC days, into the UFC, into Bellator. You even said on Friday had more Bellator fights than UFC fights. Dude's been around for ages. He's always hung around the top echelon of lightweight, and really never even faltered away from 155. I feel like he was always in that weight class.
He fought for a Bellator welterweight title actually at one point.
Oh, wow. So, okay.
Yeah, he's fought for 3 titles in Bellator, 2 lightweight titles and a welterweight title.
It really is an underrated career. I'll be curious to see if he ever gets that notch into the UFC Hall of Fame. But here's the problem. This is a guy that if we had an all-encompassing MMA Hall of Fame, I feel like would be a lock. But does he get into the UFC Hall of Fame?
No.
We shall see. But what a career, man. Hats off to him. It sucks he goes out that way. He had high hopes. He wanted to win that Grand Prix and go out that way. But as it always goes in MMA, that last fight usually never goes well. And it kind of goes for the other guy that I'll let you touch on.
Yeah, Rafael Sunsao also retired after his fight with Davy Grant. Tough way for him to go out considering, he got choked unconscious, and it was just kind of a weird
Mm,
stuff that happened there, the fence grab and stuff. He felt like he was on his way to probably winning a decision, but it's the name of the game, man. Not a lot of guys go out on top, and
yeah.
for a Sunsao, it's somewhat tragic in some ways. Like, depending on how you look at it, I try to put a positive spin on it, about how underrated of a career this guy was in terms of being just a staple at the top of the bantamweight division for the better part of a decade.
Mm,
Has wins over current champ Aljamain Sterling and former champion TJ Dillashaw. Fought some of the best of the best in the division, but never fought for a title, never won a title. And, that's kind of a shame. It felt like at a certain point he was right there. Every time he got right there, he would lose. Like, he lost to
mm,
Marlon Moraes on one of the very first ESPN Plus cards, and he was probably a win away there from fighting Henry Cejudo for that bantamweight title. Before that, I think at UFC, was it 200, he fought TJ Dillashaw in a rematch, and TJ got the win. I can't remember what card that was, but that was another one. If he wins, he might be the one fighting
yeah.
Dominic Cruz next instead of Cody Garbrandt. So,
Always right there.
yeah. So always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I do think he had a very good career. Obviously a skid on the way out, but that win over Victor Henry showed that I think even if he had continued here, he still had some wins left in him, but just not fighting at the same caliber that he once was.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, both guys great careers. Benson Henderson should be a future UFC Hall of Famer. I don't know if he'll be one of those guys that gets in right away.
yeah.
Another Hall of Fame he should be in, Dom, is the Toothpick Hall of Fame. Not
What?
sure if you're the Toothpick Hall of Fame.
That's a thing?
Well, do you know about his history with the toothpicks, right?
You're gonna have to enlighten me,
Oh,
actually.
you don't? Okay, so he fought many of his fights through his career with a toothpick in his mouth.
What?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you can go look it up.
like in his mouth. He would keep it in his mouth?
Like, I guess it was just a habit thing for him, like, he just always had a toothpick in his mouth,
How the hell
and
did that
then
get cleared by the people checking
well,
him
I
at
I I just think it was just in there with the mouth guard and whatever, like, I don't know.
That sounds so dangerous.
Doesn't it? But yeah,
Wow.
like that, because I remember it was after one of his wins, Joe Rogan comes in and goes to interview him, and I think he even addressed it. He's like, "You have a toothpick in your mouth. Like,
Wow.
you just fought with that."
I learned something
So
new today.
yeah, so you should look into that because that's something that a lot of people have kind of talked about with Benson. So there is no such thing, as far as I know, as a toothpick Hall of Fame, but he would be first ballot if there
First ballot.
was.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more gangster than fighting with a toothpick in your mouth.
I mean, the only thing better to do is fight with it hanging out the whole time. I
Yeah,
mean, that
yeah,
would just be nuts.
yeah. I'm not sure exactly logistically how that worked.
So many things are going through my head right now. I wish I could explain them, but
Yeah, well said. For my closing statement, I have a confession.
okay.
It's not one that gives me any joy.
Okay.
Yeah, I just feel like it was a big overlook by me. I'll admit a bit of a blind spot in my MMA fandom.
Okay, here it comes.
Yeah,
Okay, I
is
got you.
these guys that have these backgrounds in wrestling. Like, I tend to know what a guy's background is in, but I don't always know where they went to school.
Hmm.
Things like that. A lot of people do. I have talked on this show about my time, the week I spent in Kearney, Nebraska, and how much I hated it, how it's the worst city on earth. And Dominic did not once bring up that Kearney, Nebraska is responsible for two of the better MMA fighters in the world. Kamaru Usman and Rafael Stotts both wrestled at the University of Nebraska Kearney.
Wow.
I guess it's a bit like how, a lot of these state schools have, like, I don't know what you call them, like a satellite campus or a
Yeah.
community campus,
Regionals. Yeah.
regional campus. So Kearney has a regional campus of University of Nebraska, and that's where Kamaru Usman and Rafael Stotts wrestled in college. So
Now, when you texted us that, it was funny, by the way. What led you to find that fact? Like, how did that happen?
it's interesting that you bring that up because um, I was listening to, what was I listening to? I want to say it was the MMA Ringer show.
Okay.
I think. Could be wrong.
Mm.
Was it? Now I'm second guessing because I've been listening at work. I've gotten to a point. I went on a big deep dive of Joe Rogan's old
Yeah.
fight companions. So it might have been one of those. Actually, I'm thinking it is. No, it was one of those. So I was listening to one at work. It was a fight companion where Kamaru fought the Viking guy who he said afterwards that was only 30%.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was on Dana's shit list for a little bit. And after the fight, they were all like, where did he wrestle at? They're like, he was a All-American, I'm pretty sure. And Jamie, the guy behind the screen, he looked it up. He's like, oh, he wrestled at Kearney, University of Nebraska, Kearney. And I was sitting there like, holy fucking shit. And then I believe in that same conversation, they're like, somehow I thought they also said Rafael Stotts.
Like maybe it popped up on the screen or something.
Yeah, or something. And somehow I came to the conclusion that both these guys went there. I looked it up. It's true. And I just feel like it's so crazy. Like, could you imagine if we had like a real big following and I brought that up and did not say that? And people were just like, people that do know that shit are probably just at home like, do these guys not know? Like, do they not know? Or I understand that like it's not a big deal to know that kind of stuff. Like, we know what their backgrounds are in.
Yeah.
But knowing where they went to school, I mean, come on, let's give us a little bit of slack. But like, I full on went on this rant on an MMA podcast about Kearney, Nebraska, and in my head had no idea that there was an actual connection between the UFC. It might have been on the very same fucking card that we talked about one of those two guys.
Yeah.
Small world in a lot of ways.
That is a crazy. And during that week in Kearney, you spent, if you would have known, you could have went to the Hall of Fame for their school, and probably both of them are in it. So.
I would have been. If I would have went to more of the city, like more restaurants or something. I wonder if there would have been any like signed pictures or something.
Yeah, like in the local places. Yeah.
Like, I wonder if those guys have actually went back there because I can't imagine they have very much.
Based off what you told me about that city, probably not. But you never know.
But yeah, that's it. We're out. We're only just two of the below average Joes. I don't know. I said that out of order. We'll see. I'm just gonna let Dominic keep up the
deuce.
We're out. We'll see you on Friday.
There it goes.